That helps to I remember to do that. Okay, so I'll just, why didn't I do it? Why didn't I start our discussion? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Cathode Ray Podcast number 43. This is the return, the man, the myth, the legend. Steve Nutter is back from the brink. How you doing, mate?
I'm here, and I'm feeling wonderful in the dark annals of the CRT bunker. So
it really looks like a
good.
bunker, the arty kind of lighting that you've got on yourself there.
Yes,
Steve's entering his Renaissance phase right now.
Need some more translucent items on the shelves behind me, and we'll be getting there. So
we're getting there. Yeah, you'll feel that.
Yeah. Things
so
are
first
good.
of all, how you feeling, man? I mean, you've made the video. We all got that. How you feeling the days? This is probably going to go out on the Monday, so a few days later. But how generally are you?
Yeah, I would think that, by this point, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel much better than I did last week, and that's for sure. Woof. And since I got out, I mean, I've been feeling progressively better each day. It's just more about kind of, I do feel a bit still fatigued and get kind of winded a little bit easier. So I have to just bear with us today on the show a little bit. Sure. But yeah, it's kind of like, you're thinking something and it's just like your body just doesn't have the energy to maybe do it yet. So my wife has been giving me a hard time saying, I'm hoping you're not doing too much. And I was laughing. I was like, I've literally been sitting on the couch all day. And I watched like a 10-piece special on Michael Jordan yesterday. It was like 8 hours of just me on the couch. So no worries.
Did you watch, was it The Last Dance?
And I'd never seen it before. And so I was like, all right, I'll watch it. And then, yeah, man, you talk about bringing back some great memories. Holy crap. That was like, I was trying to explain that to my son today, because LeBron James has been in the news like today when we're filming this because he broke the scoring record of like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I was like, man, my son watched some of he's 11. He watched some of the show with me at times. And I was like, basketball is just never going to be the same as it was like when Michael was in it. It was so awesome.
Why do you think it was different to then?
I don't know. It was just such like it's like all these things feel like they kind of come to peaks in societies, right? Now it's like basketball back then was bigger than everything. Like it was, and Michael was the biggest star, above everything. It was like bigger, at least here. I don't know about growing up where you were, but like in America, there was no bigger star probably in the entire. You could throw every Hollywood star in there at the time, and none of them would be bigger than Michael Jordan during his like final run years.
Peak. You've given some credence to my nostalgia because I mean I was a huge basketball fan, and that was 98, 99, 2000. I'm leaving school then.
His last, that's the thing, The Last Dance, I think it says like 98, so that's like the last year of Jordan.
That period.
So it's like all pre that was all Jordan.
So
went to baseball.
We were nuts in high school. It was all Jordan. It was all NBA. We're playing the games. We knew the players. I remember getting either the latest game that year on the Mega Drive or something, or then I remember having an old basketball game on the Amiga. I forget which one now. And then like retyping in the names of every player so I would have the latest update. And I thought, the basketball cards too. Upper Deck. Collecting these, this was a huge high point, and I thought, well, maybe I just moved on, but it seems that maybe basketball, even as a cultural phenomenon, had a bit of a peak, and then, as you say, things go up and down. So I thought it was just me, but maybe was just the period.
I feel like that, it was going. I don't know. It's really just. It was so fun to relive all that. Such a shot of nostalgia for an entire day of just because at that time period, like you said, I was coming up and I would have been all my teenage years. And so I can remember so many nights just sitting in my bedroom when I'm supposed to be like getting ready to go to sleep. And I'm watching these NBA finals and like all the basketball games, just watching, just like on the edge of my seat and just watching every bit of it. And just remembering how, like, you could always count, like, on Michael Jordan just at the end of the thing really winning it. So, But yeah, we didn't even plan to get into this discussion. But
that's all right. But I was going to say, you were saying earlier though, were you watching some Laserdisc? Did you have the Laserdisc?
Oh
out?
yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I've been playing around with the Laserdisc more. The week before I got sick, I went out to Manhattan and to Brooklyn, and I stayed a night there. I had to go deliver a Sony PVM to the Museum of Modern Art. And when I was in there, I stayed the night in Brooklyn and then went to Brooklyn Video and Arcade store there. And I hung out with like Bob and a bunch of other guys, Jose Cruz, Ben Fong, Steve, the owner of the store, and then about a half a dozen other guys came and hang out. And I bought some stuff from Steve because he had like the most random. He'd like buy anything there, would come in the store at Brooklyn. So he had a couple of these.
Oh, cool.
Retrotique minis, which we always like laugh about. They're never in stock anymore. So he had 2 of them, and I bought 2 of them because I was like, I'll take one of these to my mom's house and leave it there. And then I hooked the other one up, coming out one of the sides of my Laserdisc player. And then I started using that into my big screen, my 50-inch plasma screen.
So the Laserdisc
480p.
Right, so now wait, that's why I want to get into the resolutions we're talking here. So does the Laserdisc your one have S-video out or just composite?
No, this one just has composite.
Okay.
So that's all right. It's all just composite. So yeah, it comes out and it definitely improves it because before then I was actually just feeding it straight into the composite video input on the front of the TV because this TV is so old it still has composite inputs, but it would do its own versions of filtering and things. But with this, I could get it, to 480p through HDMI, and then I could still use the TV's filterings to change some things on it.
So the TV's okay with 480p. 480i was too much. Its de-interlacing wasn't going well, but give it 480p.
Well, it's hard. You get those. There's this weird thing that does happen when you're doing with that 480i, and it's something where like you could see the de-interlacing, but it's never actually like a line's missing. It looks like it's de-interlacing within the background. Like a moving item might look like it's de-interlacing across the solid background because it's like doing a 480p trick where it's line doubling, but then you get these weird things where it's like on the edge you might see like the lines, right? Like the defined scan lines of a frame. And so there's always that. And then some of them aren't recorded on the greatest video quality. Now, the ones that I have that are like really good are quite interesting to watch. I still think it looks better on it looks better on a CRT.
Yeah.
It's just at least this way I can blow it up and I didn't have to really mess with it very much. So,
yeah, that's
but it's
nice.
fun.
That's a nice way. Yeah,
it's cool. Out. So the Laserdisc player does have dual outs, like 2 coming out. So one goes into the TV and this into the TV, and then the other one can go into any CRT from composite,
and works at the same time.
Yeah, and it doesn't lose any quality or anything.
So this
is like a karaoke unit. So it's meant to have like weird multiple one
two
screens
for the
going
person,
right,
projecting
and then
out.
it's got all these things in the front for holding a microphone or microphones inputs. So I don't actually have any of those Laserdisc karaoke things, but that'd be pretty fun.
I would really love to get into Laserdisc. I just can't find one in Europe. I'm sure they exist. They're there. People are going to be like, oh, no one. They're just not common and certainly not out here. So I think my best bet is going to be to haul one home from Japan the next time. But even Laserdisc, they're bulky. They're bigger and heavier than your standard. On the whole, bigger and heavier than your standard VHS. So even that I've been a bit... Because I got this great... I'll grab it up here. Wait. I got this. I found the original trilogy on Laserdisc. And I don't even have a Laserdisc player. But this was so dope. So this was only $10 for this, because Laserdiscs are very common in Japan. They're all in the junk bin. You can find many, many movies. I mean, if you're a Laserdisc collector, get yourself to Japan right now. They are cheap and readily available. And what I liked about it is each of them has this great artwork. I know it's the remaster, but I was actually hoping to pick up... well, it's the size of a vinyl, right? Laserdiscs are the size of a vinyl.
Thing. Yeah, they're beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful thing to find those, and like they're loaded with goodies. Like, these are someone who's into like having actual physical media. These things are like a dream, right?
Big and real, and I wanted to find some like some sort of frame that's a square meant for a vinyl where you maybe display your nice case or something. And I was hoping to get 3 of those and then put them on the wall, 1, 2, 3, and display them. So I'm still looking. I can't find any yet. I gotta keep looking at those. So yeah, the Laserdisc.
Well, I will tell you, the Laserdisc is such a weird novelty that. Like, I almost feel like you could go in and do what you're talking about and collect it as art pieces and maybe try to find and get lucky like I did one that's working. I do know that, like, when I would put that up at the booths, anytime when I actually had it at the one booth, so many people came over to just look at it, right? Because they're like, I've never seen a Laserdisc before. Can I look at it? And they were just blown away. So it does attract a lot of people. But now, outside of that, it's not as like you could. I mean, it's easier now. So easy to just stream movies and content in better quality, right? So
I think each of those movies is 2 discs. They're 3 sides. One side of each is not used,
and then one's empty. Yeah, that's
one
pretty
side's
common.
empty of each movie.
On the longer movies, because they could only put like 45, 50 minutes on each side of a disc.
And it's 480i. It's like it's basically the best VHS. Is that right? Or
it's the better. I don't know. I haven't researched it as much as to say anything about being an expert on it yet. But the thing is it's a lot better than obviously a tape playback at this point compared to VHS.
Sure.
And the good thing is I feel like it's much easier to deal with 50 laser discs than 50 VHS tapes.
Okay.
You know?
All right. Yeah, okay.
Because you do get the vice versa. You get the bigger machine, but you get the cooler physical media that you can almost easier, because even if you just like stacked them up and set them in a shelf, you could also,
like vinyl.
It would take a lot less space than the VHS collection. And VHS degrades no matter what. Like, I've seen ones that I've opened brand new sealed that are molded on the inside plenty of times. So these are not immune either to disc rot.
All right.
So they can flake and then not play back if that happens, like any game.
I guess the composite is the tricky part. My VHS, I got a Sony VHS DVD combo, and it's got composite out, it's got S-video out, it's got RGB out, but VHS will only come out of, I think, composite, actually. VHS won't even come out of the S-video, and I understand it's not, like, I would like the VHS to come out of RGB. Not that I expect it to be better quality, simply that it would integrate into my SCART switch much easily. Now I've got to have a SCART switch and I've got to have some sort of composite switches. So I would love, like, I could even deal with it if it had if it was using composite over SCART and just on the single. I could even deal with that. But no, it's going purist. It's only going to output composite. So, well, okay. Everything looks good on the BVM, though, as you say.
Yeah, it's fun to play around with composite on CRTs because then you can use the filters on the CRT itself. And especially a BVM, you can do a lot with just those. You get your signal. You can do a lot with the knobs and
tell us about, because
chroma.
Phase, chroma, these. I've noticed that the
filters.
comb filter. I've had to, when I'm watching VHS, I've got to turn the comb filter on to get an improved result.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was made for. Is an automatic filter that's trying to go over there and calm down the usually erraticness of the signal. But the BVM will let you separate that, because there's a couple of extra things you can do on composite that you won't be able to do on RGB, and it's all different filters, because that's what they want with RGB, is just raw, unfiltered. Whatever you see is what you get. Sure. But composite, it's not really like that, you know. So
what I've been doing is I've been trying to... I've got a small 3-port SCART switch, which I'm using for my SCARTy component plugs. And then I don't have a composite switch. So what I did in my BVM is I pinched the extra 21D cards from the other BVMs that I have, and I've been loading up my 20-inch with extra 21D cards, which the 21D, for those who are listening, the 21D can take component, it can take composite, it may be able to take RGBS. It hasn't got a sync line. So I don't know, and I've been meaning to test. Could it take
I think it
sync
might
on
take
green?
It on green. Yeah,
right. Because Sonny loves sync on green.
Or you might be able to like tie it into the sync on the main card somehow, like share the sync line. Sometimes you can do that through the, but then you'd still have to then tie it over into that sync line.
Tie that one there, because I'm sort of just trying to come up with this hybrid. I don't have an all-in-one switch right now that does everything I want it to do. So
you don't have a composite switch yet? You didn't find a good one of those?
I did find composite, but I didn't buy any in Japan. But
I
do have.
Say this, like, I found a good Extron one.
Well, I was going to say that's what I do have is an Extron composite switch, but it's rack size.
Yeah, that's what mine is. It's got like 8 inputs.
Right, and I'm actually thinking about using
8 outputs. Actually, mine is.
So I want to use that. I think I will, but it's always like, well, then there's the BVM, then there's the remote, then there's the VCR. It's like I'm stacking this thing like a tower of power.
Oh, yeah. You're going to have to build a rack for it, you know, because that's what you'll be doing next, welding.
Something like that. Welding, good. I have not welded yet. So my father used to weld when I was a kid. So, okay.
Really?
Yeah. He had the arc and the thing, and you go and that stuff. So, so I've only got one big-ass composite switch. And I'm like, okay.
Well, speaking of composite, let's jump on over here and talk about N64, because I really...
Oh, let's do it.
Because, like, I really wanted to talk about it since you brought it up in our pre-show notes, even though had so many things. So, yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about it, and we'll get some conversation going on it.
Sure. So, as I was saying in the last podcast with Roger, I dug out the N64. This one is a Japanese model that has the Volta mod installed, so it's RGB enabled. And I couldn't find the RGB cable, so I just used the standard Nintendo composite multi-out. And on the BVM, it looks great. I really, really liked it, and that's what I started this Twitter thread with Volta asking, dude, is your mod affecting composite? Because it just looks great. And, you know, Volta was Volta, but the answer was no, I'm just getting composite straight out of the N64, and I'm loving it on a professional monitor. It's smoothing the 3D. I found the RGB cable now. I'm not even sure whether I should plug it in.
Yeah, so the funny part is, yes, how like everybody, I mean, the N64 is one of those things that you like, and then you start playing, and you're like, man, this is such a shit era of just whatever was going on there was mostly shit. Now, I won't say that about everything, because like you brought up racing games. I never played the one, or I didn't play like the rally or the real racing ones like you were playing. I thought you were meaning more like Diddy Kong Racing and like Wave Race and Donkey Kong, or whatever the Mario Kart 64. Those were legendary in my household, and like Mario Party. Those first few games like that, but I always had the softest spot on the N64 personally for the wrestling games.
The wrestling.
You ever remember the wrestling games?
Wrestling. Because I didn't play many wrestling games when I was a kid. We knew the wrestling was a thing, but it sort of wasn't. We were playing the basketball games, not the wrestling games. So what wrestling games were you playing on the N64?
I mean, so there was, first off, there's WCW versus NWO World Tour came out, right? Mm-hmm. And this one...
Oh, he's got show
This
and
one
tell.
came out, and it was just... actually, I probably do have it over here. Yeah, let me see. Look, hang on.
And we can see the background of the wood grain bunker. Got Steve's hats. He's got things. He's deep underground. He's a survivalist. I was watching The Last of Us episode 3. He's a survivalist.
Yeah, there's something creeping around in here. I've got all kind of booby traps set, to make sure I'm okay. No, this one, the original.
Okay.
So this one changed it all. It was from THQ. And just whatever, they redesigned this engine that just worked specifically on this. And every good game that ever came out on the N64 that was a wrestling game was based off of this game, and the same, relatively same team when they made, I think, like a half a dozen of them by the end of it.
Okay. It was the classic era of sports games. Yeah.
Well, and it was back too when, again, when we were talking about how there was a time, it's funny enough, there was a time when basketball was kind of peaking in the late 90s, right? Mm-hmm. That's the same thing that was happening with wrestling. So wrestling was peaking, and the funny thing was I forgot about this, but Dennis Rodman was leaving the NBA playoffs after games, and then he would go tape wrestling shows with Hulk Hogan, and they would get on there and they would talk shit about how they were going to beat up Karl Malone. And I mean, it was awesome. He'd run out and hit DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, in the back of the neck with a chair, like Rodman. And it'd be on the news, it'd be where's Rodman? The Bulls are super upset. Where's Rodman been? He hasn't been to practice. And so it was just super funny to think about how that was kind of the same thing. It peaked at the right time. It was most wrestling games weren't that great up until this one. You could do a whole lot in there, and they made them better off of each other. And they're not the greatest games really to go back and play now because the graphics are so cheesy almost. But it was definitely a special time. Anybody who knows about N64, a lot of there's a good portion of people that are just in for the wrestling.
And that's a game you would want to play that with the original N64 controller.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's because that's you're used to it, and it's all based on that specific controller.
Okay.
The way you do your special involves, that's, that controller pretty much. I mean, you could do a GameCube controller too, because they came out with that same kind of game evolved into GameCube after that.
I was thinking about what I was saying about N64 controllers, and I think the reason that I like a modern stick for racing games is generally a racing game uses just left and right, one axis. And for that, a modern stick is real good. I think it flicks, I can go flick, flick, I can go back, back, and it kind of works. I wouldn't, I think, use it for maybe wrestling, maybe the Mario 64, where you've got to use the full range of motion. That's where I kind of think, all right, maybe I want that original N64 stick with that proper diamond. They sort of can't replicate that exact range of motion. So if I've got to play a game that uses many directions, both axes, then I think I'm going to go original controller.
So when you're, did you get a N64 back when they were kind of new, or is this a scene you skipped over?
This is a scene I skipped over. So what there was, I had the Mega Drive, and then I kind of, after that, and then Nintendo. I don't think I owned a Nintendo until I bought a Wii, until I got given a Wii by my girlfriend at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I actually owned one. So no, I definitely skipped it through. So no, I'm viewing it through a different lens.
No. That's just interesting. I didn't know. So what are the specifically the games you've been playing right now that you're liking, the racing ones?
On the N64, there was one, Championship Rally 2000. And it's trying to be Sega Rally. It's got the same thing, the feeling. It's not Sega Rally. They fail at copying Sega Rally, but it's still a pretty fun game. So I like that sort of stuff. I've been playing the F1 games. I've been trying because I was so interested in wheels and those things that I was doing all that work on before, that's led me to become now interested in old school F1 games. And I'm not using a wheel, I'm just using a controller. But I kind of like those. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and they've all got really similar names. So I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Like F1's called Formula 1 with a number, and the other one's Formula 1 with a O-N-E, and this gets real confusing. So I think I was just going for straight up racing games at that time and enjoying them. But I'm thinking about Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I got less than 100 days till Tears of the Kingdom, so can I get a good knockout of Ocarina of Time?
You could do it that easily. Yeah, dude. Do you have like your RAM pack in that one?
Yes. So I'm very happy that I realized I bought 2 I have 2 of them, which it's like one of those things that I totally forgotten. I was in Japan looking at the price of expansion packs, and on the ground, $35.
Yeah,
which
they're
is
expensive.
That's expensive, and that's on the ground in Japan if you're there. So even if you're ordering from Japan, you're still going to pay 40, 45, 50 these days for one. That's just what they're going for. And I couldn't remember because I don't remember anything. And I got back here, and I was very happy to realize that I've got 2 of them. So thank you, past Lewis, future Lewis, thanks you.
Yeah, it's kind of you always got to remember to look for that stuff now because it is a big deal on the pricing of the N64, if it has that or not, or the regular jumper pack. But also, how sluggish do those games get at some points? Do they ever feel like the frame rate's dropping to like? I don't know, like 12 or something.
There is a loop, because I was playing these F1 games, right? So F1 has a lot of cars on the track, 10, 15, right? So there's a gameplay loop that was happening over and over to me, which is you start the race, frame rate terrible. Especially the starting grid, there's so many cars. So then, due to the shitty frame rate, you crash or something, and so you end up in 22nd place. Everybody's way ahead because you can't control it properly, and then the frame rate's great. Now we have no problems playing the game. It's real nice and smooth. Finally, you work, you get better, you go through the corners. I'm hitting apexes. I'm doing braking correctly. I get back to the rest of the pack. Frame rate tanks again. I crash, go back to... It's just... And it goes over and over again. I couldn't sort of get myself up the rankings because it just kept crashing whenever it was tanking.
I would always wonder too if that can be something. I'm sure that could be like fixed in the code, and then like if you're using the newer Crix card or something, you could get the frame rate to stabilize. I don't know, but
maybe some way, maybe an emulation solution.
Does that make you think you're going to get that EverDrive for that or no?
I have the EverDrive already for that.
Oh, you do?
So I think the older one, I think it's called version 2.5, that you have to click reset for it to back up the battery and a few little things, but it's a Crix. It's a real one as well. It's not even a Chinese one. So that is good for me to be able to play everything.
Yeah, I miss mine. I don't know what happened to mine. I must have lent it or sold it to somebody a long, long time ago, and I don't have it anymore. My Crix.
So you have no Nintendo 64 in your right now.
I have like 2 N64s, but I only have like 5 or 6 games for it.
Oh, okay.
So,
which is because that made me think about how, like, when you're a retro collector, you want at least one of everything. Of course, I want my N64. I want, of course, the cables, the controllers. But then I started, because if you've got one of everything of every console, then I start thinking, oh, maybe I need 2 for a backup, which is how I end up with 2 controller packs, or how I have one perfectly good Xbox, official Xbox 360 VGA cable. But then I think, well, who knows what could happen to that one day? Maybe I should get a second one now, just in case. And I don't know. Do you feel that need to have one of everything, and then sometimes like, well, maybe it's going to die. Maybe I should get a second one.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things. All the CRTs. That was the first thing that was. So that's the first thing after I got my first. So the journey for me to get my first PVM was like that. Like, it wasn't easy when I got my very first one I actually liked. And then right after I got it, the whole time I was thinking I need to get another one in case something happens to this one. And there was nothing wrong with that one. But yeah, I first off bought the wrong PVM. I bought a BVM. I bought the A series back in 2015 without the component and RGB card, and that was the really hard card to get. So I was able to get composite and S-video into that thing. And then after that, I finally found a PVM that was a 1954Q. That was the one that is just like one of the better entry level. Does everything from composite to component and RGB, and it has a full service menu. And so I loved that one. And then right after that, I was like, I got to find another one. And that's all I tried to do after that was find another one. And now I have a house full of those things.
And
I have all kinds of consoles.
And you're
too, like
the expert repairman now as well.
Yeah,
so
now.
either you could buy a bunch to have backups of backups, or you could become the expert repairman of something. Or you could be both like you are.
Yeah, then you got to figure out how to fix them. And then you just keep getting them when they come to you. But there's a lot of things around here that I have that I've just got tons of. Lately, my collection's been less about something specific. It's more about me seeing something, and it might even be something I already have. If it's like a super good deal, I'll probably just buy it, right? That's just the bargain person in me. And then I might trade it for something. Actually, this happened. I never even told anybody about this. My garage right now is filled with, no joke, 8 full bins of parts from 5 and 8-inch PVMs. Okay. Like they have all been dissected down into broken down into their parts. Everything from tubes to like all the boards, and they've all just been separated because the guy was going to salvage them. And instead, these other guys got them and said they were going to bring them to me, so they just brought them here. And so I've got again, eight boxes of this stuff of just these parts. And the good thing is a lot of them are like new bezels, and things. But yeah, so people will just send me that crap. But I took it all, and then I traded that guy some extra GameCube games that I had. And these are games that I've just picked up over the years. And I mean, years ago, by $5. And I can't believe a lot of those, how much they've gone up, right? Like a couple of those are like $60. So I was like, we're here, and he was happy.
So these parts, so some blokes got them or had them, and they've got them in these bins or boxes. And did you you've traded for them so you could get these parts?
So
they didn't expect you to stick them together. What was the kind of? How did this come together?
Thing. So somebody just reached out to me through Patreon. They're like, "Hey, we got all these extra parts," and they sent me pictures upon pictures of this stuff. And I was like, "Okay, it's a lot. It looks like, And I'm like, "What do you want to do with it?" And they're like, "Well, do you want it?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, if you're around this area and you want to bring it, I'll take it off your hands. I can't really offer you anything for it, really, because it's just parts, and I don't know what it is." And so eventually they said they were going to bring him up, or he said, my buddy's going to bring him up, and I started to talk to him. And what they had done is this had all come out of one big, again, either studio or something in maybe Atlanta area, I believe, of Georgia. And first a company got it, the load of it, and the reason they ripped all these parts out is they were planning on trying to salvage this stuff all individually, all the boards. They were a salvage company. They ripped up all these 5 and 8 inches, and they also had a bunch of 20 inches that went with this load. And so somehow they maybe listed these monitors on the internet, and these other guys found them locally, and they just bought the whole load from them. They said, well, give us all of it instead of you taking just the monitors. They said, you got to take all the other parts too with it.
How
And
does
so
the
they did
salvage thing work? I don't get. So there was a salvage company, and
Well,
the
you
monitors were
don't,
not working,
like-
so they've ripped them apart. Why did they rip them
Do
apart
you
in the first place?
understand? So do you know the life cycle of an electronic device from that era? That's what it does. It eventually ends up. If this is this is the approved way of this happening, right? It's like it's a professional environment that rips these monitors apart and breaks them down into each portion. So you'll have a pile of plastics. That's all the plastics. You throw all the screws and all the other kind of recyclables are separated, the metal from the shell. The tube's taken on its own because the tube is not, we've talked about this, it's got to be specifically disposed of, so that's tricky. But the rest of the stuff will be broken down into just its component level stuff, so they might even take them and they'll, depending on however far they break down circuit boards, some companies go as far as to, strip the components off there and even maybe melt that down into something that's, again, extrudable and reusable, like some primary ore, or they could sell it as like scrap copper to another facility that goes and processes it and turns it into a copper that's used in production again as a new copper.
So the salvage guys decided. I mean, I guess I'm trying to get to the salvage guys decided to break these monitors down, and all we've got now are crazy monitor people now buying this stuff up for parts, and it ends up for you. Is it just a standard procedure when they get an electrical thing? I mean, maybe there was value in it. Do you think they just not
sometimes they do that? What they're doing is they're used to getting into those devices and pulling all the wiring out, right? You just clip all the wires, you put that in a bin, you take that over to the scrap yard, you get 60 cents a pound for that. Okay. Like that's a commodity that can be sold at 60 cents a pound. So that's what they're doing. They're running in there and they're just stripping everything and separating it out into stuff they can sell all the way down to what they can't sell, right? So it's like that is a standard procedure. They don't just go and let the stuff pile up usually. They'll try, so it depends on the outfit, but the places, the recycling centers and the break, they'll do that with things that they can't sell or that are already obviously broken.
Okay, because that was the next thing I was going to get to, that they haven't understood, or it's not quite as easy as we think.
Well, they'll still try to sell some of this stuff. There's a lot. That's what eBay's filled with sellers that are these recycling firms. So the original thing is the company that owns this equipment that's outdated originally is a commercial entity. They go and hire R7 recyclers, who's a certified EPA recycler. They come to the facility and they just take all the equipment out, and then they give them a bill, right? And then they go back to their facility and they resell anything that's reusable and sellable, and they'll have people that work for them that relist it on reselling sites. And then if they can't resell it, they have to start processing it into something else that's sellable, right? And they can't, because they don't want to just keep it on site.
Sure.
But that's where CRTs are kind of tricky because they have to deal with the tubes. So a lot of times they don't just rip up CRTs. Usually they don't rip up CRTs. But they must have thought there was so much in these small ones that they could rip them up.
Right. At some stage they've decided, okay, we can't sell them for whatever reason. Maybe they can't ship them or they can't find a buyer, and they've decided to rip them up. They're in the bins, and then these blokes have come along and said, we'll just take everything that you've got. There must be some point where the recyclers go, wait, they just took everything from
the
this?
recyclers are like, thank goodness, now we got room for the next load, and I'm not taking any more CRTs. Those take forever to get rid of. Because you got to think about it for them. They're just quick turnover. They don't, that's the thing. If you're going and messing with a recycler and buying things from them, you can't go, oh, can I come down there and hook up my 240p test suite to each one of those monitors and just pick one of them and buy it for $2? No, you've got to go in there and you just be like, hey, I'll buy all of it for pennies on the dollar, pretty much, because that's what they're working with you. They'll work with you then.
Okay.
But you got to take all of it, right? You got to take
which
the whole
you've
load.
now ended up with. So
Now
so these guys came to you and
third
just said,
wave.
"Hey, do you want it?" They weren't like, "Can you
they,
piece it
like,
together?"
brought a
They said, "Do you
trailer.
want it?" Okay.
Yeah, I brought a trailer and just said, "Here, do you want?" And I was like, "Okay." So now I have my garage kind of cleaned out,
Yeah.
and now it's just got these fancy bins up there. I literally haven't even had time to look in. I've actually got they're just stacked up there. So one day we'll go up there and see what's in them.
That's going to be interesting to see. I mean, if there's a Beazles, this is a very good thing.
Yeah, I
to
did
get
open
some of
one
those.
box, and it was just filled with the RGB monitors that are the 8-inch and 9-inch, just bezels, just
Right.
good bezels that had just been pulled off. And I could tell the tubes weren't bad either. So if people are looking for 8 and 5-inch tubes, some of those, if they're good, those will be reusable.
This is great. This is really good for you. I
Yeah,
mean, now you
that's-
got to store all this crap.
Now
but,
some of the tubes I could tell got their necks broken.
okay.
So that's the vacuum seal's busted. They're trash. So there's a couple like that. And that's why I kind of told the guys, I was like, I can't give you any money because it might cost me to dispose of this stuff. So they were fun. They were the guy was a young engineer, just into this stuff. Probably a lot smarter.
Yeah, how did did those
than I am.
guys want did they just see it and go Steve would love this, I'm going to take it over to him?
Yeah,
Or
and then
why?
a part
What was
of the
their
stuff-
inspiration? Okay.
Yeah, and they're just. I guess they just they like the show. They like
Cool.
everything.
Right on. Thank you
They
very
wanna
much
help.
if you're listening.
They got
Thank
the
you
stuff.
guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good to have a good
So-
parts bid. Yeah, you've got quite the parts storage there, which is good. I mean, you will use it at some stage, but
Yeah, there will
is
be
it this
some,
year or 5 years?
Yeah, that's it right. It would be fun to. It would be interesting to see if I can put anything back together, wouldn't it? If I could get it, something put back together and create. The only thing I did notice is they just went through and cut the anode cap, so those. I don't know whether that's something that is refusible. What could you replace that wire somehow? I don't know. It would seem awfully tragic to not be able to, but I don't know.
Okay. Something else for your time, because you've got so much free time as it is.
I do now, right?
Yeah.
No.
Well, true.
Oh, yeah. So things have been going pretty good. Hopefully, we'll be feeling better. As time goes on, and
I think we will. I think this
You
time is
catch
good for you as
rest
well
and-
to
yeah,
take
it
a
is good
rest.
for
It is important to have this.
yeah, I think that everybody should take time this year to make sure that just you're doing all right, yourself out there, wherever, health, anything. If there's anything concerning to you, there's no problem going to get it checked out. I think that's a big thing, because I think that it's pretty common for men to feel of course, tough and wait to the very last minute, right? To be I'm not never going to the doctor because
Definitely.
doesn't happen to me. I'm the tough guy. And I tried a little bit to explain that in the video, that I had already felt guilty enough. My wife was stressed out for a new job she's been working at, and to have to deal with 2 young kids, and they both had been sick. And then I really wasn't able to do anything to help, right? 2 dogs that are a pain in the neck too. So
She's got to run the household when you're out of
right,
action.
So, yeah, so you feel already kind of bad enough, and then, but if you're not able to do anything, that's even worse, right? Something happened to me and I'm gone, isn't it? Really screwed, right? So that was my main thought and focus on that, was just making sure that I can come back. And the good thing is everything I don't mind saying this, I'm on pace to be completely fine from everything that I've been told by the doctors. And so, it was literally just such a freak event, they said, super rare, and that I was able to just make it through it. So that's just the good end of everything, is there's no permanent damage. And I've talked to plenty of people who had, weren't as lucky as I was, or weren't, things didn't come out the way they had for me, where they came out and they were having to, either be on medication or anything for a long time or permanently. So I feel mostly fortunate, and I feel like in a few weeks I'll feel really good.
Yeah, I think so. That time, it's your body, you're sending you messages. For me, that's why I say I went to the gym today, and I haven't been to the gym in months, but many, many months before I traveled, and even before that. But my body was sending me some messages, not like chest pains or anything, but my soreness in the back. And I know what that means. That means you better go stretch and do something right now. Otherwise, otherwise my back is going to lay me out on the couch for a week or something like that. And I've got to work tomorrow, and I've got to do some things and the weekend. So, yeah, I guess I took that inspiration. I'm like, okay, I will listen to my body. I'll do what I have to do, and then I will go to the gym and make sure I follow Steve's good advice.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. Like the first, I don't know, leading up to that week before I got sick, I did so many things. Because at first I drove myself all the way up to New York, Manhattan. Got in the car and drove up that 2530 and delivered it straight in like the heart of the city there. It was pretty crazy to drive it all the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds
driving
nuts.
in New York City is insane. So,
yeah.
And then we had a great time over there hanging out with Bob. He brought over some BVMs, the little D9s, and they both were acting really wacky. And we were able to figure out that there's just like a loose cable on the flyback on there that causes the convergence and focus to just bounce like out of focus. And then if you just tap the wire, it just it'll go fine. So it's like it starts to short out. And so we were laughing. I was just in there tapping it, and I was like, yeah, Bob, that's all you have to do to fix it is just open it up and tap this wire while it's turned on.
So you were there fixing monitors out the back of Brooklyn Video Games when you were there.
Yeah, it was fun. They were showing me all this stuff. Man, I had way too much fun there, though. They're like, yeah, it's Wednesday. It was a Wednesday night, so it was pretty slow. So we hung out, and it was great. I'm not used to living in places, of course, like New York City, but you can I was like, where do I go get some beer? And then Steve's like, oh, here, man, come with me. And we literally walk out the door and walk right next door, just next door. And then it's like, well, where do you get food? Oh, here, next door. And then I always love going and hanging out, and I'm excited to go back and maybe I had some great ideas. I got to talk to some of the guys there that work there, and hopefully some of these ideas can come to fruition because I think they're pretty good, but that'll all be for future to determine. Sure. I'm not going to mention any of them
Brooklyn
yet.
Video Games, I was there once some years ago, and I went to a little store, and is there like a basement or something where the machines
that is probably the original store that you went to. They opened a second location, and he told me this was their second year. And yeah, they have a full basement. They even have a back patio. And nice. So yeah, I mean, it was awesome. And big store. I mean, they had, Lewis, you'd love it, man. I bet they had a half a dozen candy cabs in there. Another, I'd say half a dozen other arcade machines and different styles, like a couple of Neo Geo machines, a couple of Marvel vs. Capcom dedicated machines, 2 of those. Those are pretty awesome. And they had, you could see pictures from their Twitter profile. But Steve, he's got the 4 candy cabs set up, against one wall. And they alternate between the 2 of them as to which one's hooked to each other. So it's like if you're on one and you're playing against in the same game against somebody else, you're skipping a seat, you're the next one, right? Okay. You see? And then same thing. So they said they loved they set up that so because people then can't watch your hands.
Yeah, okay.
If you're playing against somebody, so but it was really cool.
That's a thing, because I'd be like, if I'm watching your hands, I'm not looking at my thing. I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. That's what they
don't know the highest levels of the game.
I don't like it. No, there's some guys. There was a guy there that was like, High Ranked and Street Fighter 2. And like they had just come back from some tournament there. They were going into the details of it. I really didn't know much about it, but it was fun. It was great to meet them and hang out. And I can't, like, I go on those fighting machines and I just jump on. I get my ass whipped.
Yeah,
you know.
I love it. I want to. I want to be involved, but I just can't. I once here in Tallinn many years ago. There was a video games, like some sort of internet cafe and different things, and I ran a Smash Brothers night, and I was like the worst player there. I just liked running it because I also saw there's a group for Smash players in Stockholm in Sweden, and they're having this like getaway where they're like renting a whole big place out in the archipelago. It's a really nice place in the countryside. They're going for 3 or 4 days, and it was only like $250 to get everything, accommodation, and the food is covered. And I thought, that'd be the coolest shit to go to, but I can't play that well. Like, not even, it wouldn't be good. Like, I'm playing against the best guys in Sweden, and I feel like I just get my ass kicked time and time again.
You have to take lessons from Shank.
Yeah, I mean, my boy.
Yeah, that's what he'll do. He'll teach you and get you ready for the tournaments.
Yeah,
they tell you about the ghetto tournaments that go through the United States. One of the guys, I met a couple of these guys when I was in Connecticut for the gaming convention in last summer, and Shank was there, and he had a couple of these guys he knew from that were high on the tournament scene of Smash Bros. And they were showing me this video from one of them that they had recently been to where this CRT just sparked and started smoking and caught on fire. He said that they will have the most ghetto, awful CRTs. Like, you'll go and there'll be like one nice CRT and you'll be stuck playing on one that's got like a half a pink screen, half a green screen, and then you're stuck playing, or it's like so fuzzy you can't see. It's like they'll be like pincushion warped in, but the best one was they literally pulled up a video clip of this thing just catching on fire in the middle of the Smash Bros tournament.
It's funny. Oh, that's so dope. Oh boy. So yeah, we're getting towards
else on the agenda.
Well, we got a few more things, but I think we got some good topics, but we could also leave it for another day as well. Now that I'm back, you're ready, and you've got this nice new setup here, so we can record again next week and do a few more episodes. Usually go for like an hour and a half, so maybe it's good to have a nice little shorter
that's
one
fine.
here.
I'm still getting some stuff figured out over here anyway. My camera wants to focus again, so hopefully get everything worked out, ironed out back here in the bunker.
Yeah, it's looking nice. So the bunker is downstairs from where you were, the lounge room area where you were previously filming.
So this is like, I can kind of show things around. So this is like,
okay, yep.
This is the soldering area, kind of where I do all the sit here and do all that, and then I've got lighting above and around me.
Okay,
and then
I'm going to put you to full screen. When I edit this, I'll put this to full screen.
It's darker over in that area, obviously, but that's like where the storage is. And then I've got another workbench right there that's on wheels and such. So
I'm so jealous having so much room.
Oh, it's a lot of space, but there's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of things in it right now. But I've actually gotten quite a few PVMs I bought, and I haven't had time to mess with yet. I bought a 1343 MD, and then I bought a 1344Q, which actually had a big crack in the bezel when it arrived, and it shipped. And I wound up keeping it for, I think I paid him $100 for it. Wow. I said, because it works perfectly, and I just have to take it all the way apart, and it's got one huge crack in the bezel. So I got that one, and there's supposed to be a Olympus OEV 203, which is the 20-inch PVM. That's supposed to be getting shipped today by UPS, and I can't believe it's not going to show up just destroyed. You know?
Yeah, okay. These are coming from eBay. All these are coming from eBay?
Yes, and this was somebody who I actually communicated with, and they were delaying shipping, and this was all going on too while I was sick. And they would send me messages like, "We need to hear from you about this shipping." They asked me if I could go drive and pick it up an hour away from here, from a hub, and I said no, that's not an option. I was like, I want it shipped to my door, and that's it. And then I was like, you can use UShip if you want, and you set it up that way, and they'll just come get it. And they're like, well, we'll just do UPS. And I was like, okay, but please make sure you. I said, please. I said twice. I was like, please make sure you pack to meet their insurance standards if it's damaged. Oh, we will. We promise. So we'll see what they say. We'll see what happens. So what happened? They split it up into two boxes, and for some reason I got only a small tube box delivered yesterday, and it had, it had a splash guard cover for the buttons or for the front.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Just that, and then the little U hooks on the front, and it just that were like unscrewed and pulled out to send to me in a different box. So I was like, at first I thought it was a joke. I was like, this is not a full PVM. This does not count as delivered a full PM. But they're like, oh, sorry, we have 2 boxes coming. And so box 1 came, and now I'm like, oh, boy, box 2 sure hasn't come yet.
Okay.
So we'll see.
That stuff's not too bad. I mean,
exciting.
even you would imagine the cracked bezel one. So that's 13-inch. Is this like, remember that thing we were talking about where there's a number difference between the European and American versions? Like you have 9-inch, but you have 8-inch PVMs, but mine say 9. Is it the same with the 13 and 14?
Would say the European version of this one would say the 14, 44Q, might even say M, or the 1443. They would say that, and it would still be the same 13-incher. They stopped that when they got to like the M's. Right, because that's when they stopped it. So, but this one would say that, and then there might be a slight difference to it, but I doubt it. Internally, really, sure. I doubt there's really anything.
I don't think so either. So okay, so it's the same.
The
thing,
real good thing about the one that I got shipped that got the cracked bezel. The reason you really want to save it is it was one of the only ones from that era that could do component. Like the other ones can do RGBS. But they couldn't do component. This one can do both. It's got a switch on the back between component or RGB.
So even with the cracked bezel, I would imagine if you do your magic on it, refurbish it, make sure that everything's up to speed, fix the bezel as good as I think you would still be able to get a very fair price for that and make it worth your while to turn that around. Yeah,
or that could be one to hold on to as just like one here.
Okay.
Or something, or somewhere where somebody, is looking for a deal on something, or, and I feel like, hey, I need to get rid of it. That's usually what happens. I usually end up with a monitor like this every once in a while, and I hold on to it for a while, and then somebody's like, oh, I really want one, and I'm like, okay, well, here, I need to get rid of this one because another one will come in just like it. It's not hard for them to break them.
I was asking about the 14 because I still have my original 14-inch PVM in my storage. I saw it today and I remembered it. And that was the one that was in the car fire, the first car fire, and that got water damaged. And I got it out the back of the car before they took it away. I left it for some days, made sure that it was very, very, very dry. I turned it on and it worked at first, and then it stopped working 2 days later. And it was maybe because, well, I don't think I've tried again after that. So I'm thinking this might be my summer project, is to completely dismantle it, clean those boards as much as I can, and see whether I can get this thing back to life. And because what I hope hasn't happened is that the fire, it's not quite water, the fire brigade spray, that's some sort of detergent chemical mix, that I think that got in, and that might have been a little bit corrosive or something.
That
is possibly would have happened. So I'm hoping that hasn't corroded the insides too much, and a bit of a clean will help it. So that's my project.
Sometimes if there could be like dampness and it gets into the CRT, they won't turn on, and then you could literally unplug them and come back a day or two later and they'll dry out. and you turn it on, it functions properly. So there's definitely, that's not, I'm not saying what your situation is obviously different if they're spraying it at a large amount and it gets inside of it. But I have had things where I've gone and there'd be a lot of humidity in the room and you could tell the board's probably internally wet from the humidity because the outside of the monitor's wet. And if you click it on and it might go and then like turn off and you're like, oh goodness, why did I even turn it on?
Yeah.
Come back after it dries out and it works perfectly.
Okay. So this one's been now sitting there for more than a year and a half or something.
Almost turned it on if it just started working.
It worked. Yeah, it'd be funny. It worked, and then it didn't work, and then I kind of left it. Because I remember when I turned it on, I mean, I've just pulled this thing out the back of a car fire. So I have this highly sensitive piece of electrical equipment. So I remember what I did is I kind of left it on the balcony, and then I ran the cord to an extension cord, which I ran further in the house, and I was not going to press that button on the front of the PVM. I pressed it, and then I went to 5 meters away to the extension cord, like, like Doc Brown and Back to the Future went zzz. Because I'm like, if that thing blows up, I am not standing next to it. But nothing... Like, I'd be like Shank's CRT that sparked everywhere. I was thinking something like that would happen.
I don't know how it would even... It's so funny. People, you look at a CRT and you think like it's going to explode in some manner, right?
Probably not. So nothing happened, though. I didn't need to take that level of precaution, but you never know. So I would like to have that 14-inch redone. That would be a nice little
Which one is it? Is it do you remember the model on it?
No, I don't, unfortunately. It did RGBN component.
Okay.
I don't think
it had a service menu?
Had an on-screen menu. I remember that much.
Okay.
There was an on-screen menu in that. So,
this
could be, you could tutor me through and guide me through, mentor me through.
Yeah, well, that's what I'll do. I'll tell you bring it on, and then I'll talk about it because I don't want to do any work myself for a while, so you can get it out. Get it.
Sure.
Well, you can use me while I'm recuperating, and I'll just watch you until you do the wrong things and laugh. Just touch that wire like I did.
Yeah, no problems. Yeah, see that red and black one just together. Just don't worry about that.
Yeah, I did actually. I was telling some of the doctors like what I did. I was like, yeah, remember those old things you guys used to look at, like ultrasounds on, the big boxy ones? Yeah, those are big business now. If you know where any of those are, please tell me.
Yeah. God, this guy's on his deathbed and he's still like, you got any CRTs? Come on, doc. I know this is a hospital. I know you did radiography and imaging. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right. So.
It's funny, mate. All right, mate. Why don't we wrap it up here?
Right.
It's been a good... we're all very pleased that you're doing well. Thank you for sharing that story as well. You could have just said, I'm not feeling good and da-da-da. So it was very nice to hear that for everyone. So thanks, mate.
Yeah, my hope is that it just... and I think it already probably has. Maybe somebody will have something unexpected happen to them and they'll be able to go and just think about that, and it will maybe give them the courage to just say, hey, maybe I should just go in and see how I'm doing.
Sure.
And then that might save somebody's life. So that was really the only point to that, was to just, also it was very therapeutic for me to be able to tell that kind of long story one time. Mm-hmm. And then if anybody really wants to know the long version, they can just go look at that. And then I don't have to sit there and kind of tell that story over and over and over again. And then, like, who knows, man? Maybe my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids one day will want to look back and see something like this. You never know. So
yeah, when your families call it up trying to find out how you are, you can be like, just watch the video.
Exactly, yeah. Somebody's like, ooh, I actually watched your whole video, and I want to see how are you doing okay? And I'm, oh, wow, okay, yeah. I'm doing good.
I was going to say, did any of them pull the, I watched your full video for once? Like,
yeah.
Low key, like usually I would never watch this shit.
Yeah, I was like, now I'm having the near-death, I'm going to get the near-death experience algorithm sent to my channel. But no, actually, I was actually happy. Some of the comments were nice. I had, like, somebody who said they were a doctor, And they were like, this kind of information is extremely helpful because most patients, even when they go in, don't want to really even tell this much of just what I had said, how this led up to, this thing. So I was just hoping that, kind of like that may be helpful. Just like anything else that I'm doing with the CRTs, just like showing people stuff about them. This was just a little more important.
Indeed. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching the Cathode Ray Podcast. Like and subscribe if you're still here. We appreciate your support. Steve's got the Patreon where you can, find out, help support him. Also, if you're looking for the monitor information, he can help you on the Patreon over there. Steve, I'll talk to you next week, mate.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.